Picture this. You find yourself in a large mall. You're there because you have to pick up a last-minute birthday gift for a friend. As you make your way throughout the shopping centers, nothing seems to be particularly amiss. At least, not at first. You find the gift you've been looking for and pay for it at the checkout. You exit the store and begin heading in the direction of the parking lot. That's when something starts to feel a little strange. The hair on the back of your neck stands upright, and you can't quite figure out why. You look around and realize that all the people you passed by when entering the mall have now seemingly disappeared. The mall is nearly empty, and you're one of the very few left behind. Assuming they close early today, you quickly make your way to the exit. But something causes you to freeze in your tracks. At first, you're not sure what it is or if you're imagining it, but you soon realize that you can hear screaming coming from the other side of the mall. You pick up the pace now, practically running towards the exit. Something is wrong and you have to get out of there. The screaming doesn't stop and is soon accompanied by the sound of sirens. When you reach the exit door, you throw it open and are greeted by the cool night air. As you look out over the parking lot, you witness something you have never seen before in your entire life. The anecdote you have just heard is not entirely too far from the truth. On January 1st, 2024, hundreds of police officers from the Miami Police Department were called to the Bayside Mall, or Marketplace. The reports stated that there were a large number of people rioting within the building. In some of the footage, you can see shoppers fleeing from the mall as if something terrible was going on inside. Upon arrival, police began arresting large groups of teenagers who were fighting with one another. There are videos of these teens, and this is the story that would be told in the following days through news articles and broadcasts. But this isn't the full story, and what would follow remains one of the strangest mysteries in recent memory.
My name is Fitz. I was there at the Bayside Mall with my family, and we all saw exactly what happened. Don't pay attention to a lot of the videos that are out there. I feel like a lot of people are trying to use this for clout. But what happened, we all saw what happened, and it's pretty serious. It's been a few days, but our whole family's processing it, but I think we've kind of accepted that we were a part of this weird experience and moment. So basically what happened was I was there with my brother Brian, my sister and my nephew. We were looking for shoes for my nephew, and then we see a whole crowd of people outside the store just running out in a direction. So as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh shit, what's going on? So we immediately ran out with our nephew, and we picked him up and we ran out and we followed the crowd, and then about a few seconds later, as soon as we started running, my nephew, he's autistic, so he was pointing behind us and he was saying blankie, which he'll usually say whenever he feels unsafe or scared. And he was pointing behind us. So me and my brother, we look behind us, and then we see these 3 9-10 foot tall creatures. I'm not gonna say aliens. Everyone keeps saying it's aliens. I'm not saying aliens because I don't know what it was. None of us really knew everyone.
We'll say the credible eyewitnesses reported seeing 3 large, tall extraterrestrials that were 8-9 feet tall that seemed to emerge from a clothing store in this mall, which sent the entire population of the mall panicking, running, screaming out of the mall. The duty officer on charge with Miami Police Department called up every single police officer on duty and car in Miami at the time, which was 123 cars and cops, which that goes completely against all known law enforcement protocols. So you would never, it would be against police protocol to send every cop to that mall unless it was something incredibly serious. And the official story of 30 kids or whatever fighting each other with sticks does not qualify to call up 123 cars with 123 cops in it.
These three figures were supposedly seen by a number of people fleeing the mall. Following this incident, the hashtag Miami Mall Aliens began trending on social media. The buzz generated by this hashtag and videos subsequently leaked would signal the start of a detailed investigation to find out what exactly happened that night at the Bayside Mall. One of the leading theories in the investigations was that the three figures seen were actually holograms generated by some type of device. This would explain why they were able to stand nearly 8 or 9 feet tall.
There was a guy up above on the second floor, and he saw some kids like messing around with something. And yesterday when Yasko and I were kind of talking about it, it didn't register to me, but he said that they plugged something up. Right. Well, I thought to myself, how the hell are they gonna plug something up at the mall? Bro, look, there's plugs over here. Legit a plug right here.
As soon as it made itself more apparent, it looked like it was glitching. Not like a computer pixelation, but like a wavy glitch. And whatever maybe was covering them had, unveiled or whatever. Yeah, it looked like a glitch, man. Like a weird glitch in the Matrix or whatever.
So if these figures were in fact the result of a hologram, it begs the question, why would someone want to do this? There are a number of theorists who claim that the hologram was part of some type of military technology, and the events that occurred at the Bayside Mall were a result of this technology being used in a real-world scenario. It was also to test the authenticity of the hologram, an authenticity that could only be proven in a real-world scenario. But what about the footage? If there were people shopping at the time of the incident, how do we not have any concrete proof or videos or pictures?
Everyone has a cell phone. Why were there no actual photographs or videos just from civilians?
As they were leaving the mall, the cops had surrounded the mall and were stopping people and checking their phones and deleting photos and video.
If this statement is true, that police were tasked with stopping people, it might explain why so many officers were called to the scene. If the original statement is true, that a large fight broke out between a number of teenagers, would that really constitute so many officers to be called at the same time? This is the big issue that many people have when it comes to the Miami Mall mystery. In what scenario would you ever need this many law enforcement all in one place? The answer, it would seem, is only if there were something otherworldly happening. So let's say there were 3 large figures in the mall that night. Why would they end up there in the first place? The theories regarding this are very interesting. In February of 2017, NASA made a public statement regarding a new project to find alien life in Antarctica. And while on the surface they were referring to microbes in the various cave systems throughout the continent, some people believe that this was just a front. Antarctica is among one of the most prominent locations for UFO sightings. As such, people researching the Bayside Mall case found an interesting detail. The coordinates for Antarctica read as such. If you slightly alter these coordinates, you get the following. The theory states that this small mistake might be the answer as to why these strange beings found themselves at a place as random as the Bayside Mall. Following the events of January 1st, the news continued to spread the story that a large group of teens were fighting and lighting off fireworks inside the mall. When it was all said and done, only a small handful of teenagers were arrested and charged. While many people have made up their minds about what exactly happened at the Bayside Mall on January 1st, other people are not convinced. And that is why it remains an unsolved mystery. And here's where things get interesting. While I was doing my research for the Bayside Mall incident, I came across a number of other mysteries buried within the depths of the internet. And while the Bayside Mall mystery might be a little bit more well-known given the sheer scope of it, here are a couple that are a little bit more obscure.
Hi, my name is Xana Kernodle. I'm a marketing major here at the University of Idaho, and I'm involved in a couple things down here, including Vandal Solutions. Last year I did Police Properties. I was an associate with them, and I basically just worked with Police Properties.
This is Xana Kernodle, and this is one of the final videos that was taken of her before she was murdered. Xana was a student at the University of Idaho. She lived in an apartment just off campus with some of her friends. While many characterized her as a good student and academically inclined, she certainly had her fair share of problems prior to her death.
Hello, miss. What's your name?
Xana.
Xana, do you live here?
Yes.
Hey, did Megan talk to you earlier?
No.
Okay, does Megan live here?
Megan, I do not have Megan out.
Megan Mogan?
Maddie Mogan, yes.
Madison Mogan? Yeah.
Madison Mogan? Okay, she does live here?
Sorry, she is at the club. She's 21. I'm just going to bed.
This instance would be just one of the few times when police showed up at Xana's home, and while this interaction was in response to a noise complaint, the next time police set foot on the property would be a whole other story. In the early morning of November 13th, 2022, Xana and 3 of her university friends were murdered in her home. The names of the other 3 were Madison, Kaylee, and Ethan. At the time of the murder, there were also 2 other roommates sleeping in the home. This crime would come as a shock to the community, not only because of the vile act itself, but the community had not seen a murder since 2015. As such, a detailed investigation would take place, conducted by the Moscow Police Department and FBI. Autopsy reports showed that each of the victims had been stabbed multiple times with a knife. It was concluded that each of the victims had been attacked in their sleep, with at least one of them waking up and attempting to fend off the attacker. The trajectory of the investigation would take a turn on November 19th, when police requested that the public provide any video or photographic evidence of the house that may have been recorded that night. As a result, investigators received nearly 15,000 pieces of evidence in the form of emails, phone calls, and digital media submissions. The following is Ring camera audio from the next-door neighbors. I warn you, it is very disturbing. In this clip, you can hear a number of female screams, as well as a voice calling out the name Xana. Though this piece of evidence was helpful in determining what exactly happened that night, it also posed new questions for investigators. If this audio was picked up by the Ring doorbell from next door, it's hard to fathom that the 2 surviving roommates in the house didn't hear anything at all. According to their story, they heard crying coming from Xana's room. Accompanying her was a whispering male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." They then saw a figure in black clothing and a mask exiting the home through the sliding glass door. Strangely enough, the two surviving roommates wouldn't call 911 until 11:58 a.m. the following morning. This was over 7 hours after the murders occurred. I think it goes without saying, but by the time police arrived at the home, Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan were pronounced dead. When interviewing the two surviving roommates, they described the killer as being roughly 5'10" and athletically built with bushy eyebrows. Investigators would obtain various DNA samples from the home, which trace back to a man named Brian Christopher Kohberger. After finding a knife, pistol, and black face mask in his glove box, Brian would be arrested. Ironically, Brian was a student of criminology at the university. After his conviction, a neuropsychologist evaluated him, taking note of what she refers to as impulsive tendencies. She also described Brian as highly distractible and demonstrating little insight into his own behaviors and emotions. With Brian pinned as the perpetrator and being put to justice, the community surrounding the University of Idaho could breathe a sigh of relief.
This is where I would ask that you turn on your electronic candles if you have them. Xana Kernodle. Ethan Chapin. Kaylee Gonçalves. Madison Mogan.
But as the story would be passed around through the news, many people could start to see some evident holes in the story. Among the issues with the story, speculators pointed out, why did the two surviving roommates wait so long before calling the police? Especially if the attacks could be heard by the Ring doorbell next door, you think they would have called the police immediately upon hearing screaming.
I'm a retired FBI agent, and this case does not make sense. The Brian Kohberger case was back in the news a few days ago when he got a change of venue, and I decided to kind of re-examine the case. If you don't recall, in 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were stabbed to death.
Subsequently, people began questioning how someone like Brian, who has never murdered before, was able to kill 4 people back to back so quickly.
You would I mean, the way the simulation goes, he got it under 8 minutes, but he didn't account for the fact that there were struggles with the VIX and that people were injured and the perp may have been injured. It doesn't also account the fact that, I don't think E ran away. I think E would have put up a fight to protect his girlfriend and the other ladies in the house. I think that's what he would have done. And I think there would have been a lot of commotion. And, it also shows how close DM's room is and how she could not know that something happened.
Some theories suggest that because Brian was a criminology student, his interest had led him to develop a desire to carry out the perfect crime, a crime in which he could get away with. Unfortunately for him, this wouldn't be the case. As it stands right now, a jury trial is scheduled for August 11th of this year, with persecutors seeking the death penalty for Brian. Despite this, many people continue to believe that we do not have the full and complete information on the case. As such, for these people, the murders of the Idaho 4 remain a mystery. Shortly after the murders, Xana's home would be demolished. But still, many have not forgotten the horrors that took place there. If you've made it this far into the video, please consider subscribing to Something Sinister, as I make content like this nearly every week. This disturbing image supposedly contains the disfigured identity of a killer. If you've been on the creepy side of the internet for a while, chances are you've probably stumbled upon it. It's been used to accompany creepy stories, YouTube thumbnails, and even Spotify playlists. But where exactly did this image come from? Posted to r/cursed images 7 years ago, this picture slowly began garnering the reputation of being cursed. Specifically, should you receive this image, it was said that bad things would happen to you. When taking a look at the image itself, it appears to have been taken during the winter time. Snow is on the ground and there are no leaves on the trees. In the foreground, a figure appears to be in motion, staring just off to the side of the camera. Their face appears to be disfigured to some extent. It doesn't quite look like a mask, but instead someone's genuine face. This person is apparently a boy named Jimmy, who was the subject of bullying at his school. One day, the bullies set up a particularly macabre joke that ended in Jim's face being burned from acid. When paramedics arrived, Jim was still alive, but unable to speak. He was quickly brought to the ICU, where doctors began salvaging what little they could of his face. Fortunately for Jimmy, his vision was still intact, and he would be sent home sometime later. But the integration back into reality was not an easy one. Many people were scared of Jim and his disfigured appearance. Angered by this, Jim would hunt down the boys who did this to him and kill them in horrific ways. Brett felt faint and darted to lock the front door, knowing what was coming. As he turned to run for it, he immediately hit something and fell backwards. The last thing he ever heard was liars, as acid ran down his face and began to slowly eat away at his flesh. The last thing he ever saw was Jimmy's face, contorting into a sick, twisted smile. Or at least this is how the story Liars goes. Liars is a creepypasta written by Ivy Sir and is accompanied by the aforementioned image. But this is not where the image initially comes from. In fact, its origin is a lot more obscure. When taking a look at this version of the image, the word liars can be seen in the top left corner. This could have been edited by the writer of the creepypasta to accommodate for Jimmy saying liars in the end of the story. But this is not the case. When you do an image back search, you get taken to a Spotify link titled "We Fenced Other Gardens with the Bones of Our Own." This is a song from the band Liars and dates all the way back to 2004. This is the oldest version of the image we have yet to see, but it doesn't end here. If you search the song on YouTube, you can find a 7-minute long music video uploaded by user Venice Lockjaw. The music video is very strange and features footage of the snowy woods. There are 3 characters walking through the woods together, all of which have animal face paint on. They are then killed by a laser beam, and a mirage of strange imagery begins to play. Specifically at 3.5 minutes in, we see this footage, which is strikingly similar to the album cover that has come to terrify us all. And while this still frame is not replicated in the video, I think it's safe to assume that this photograph was taken of this man during the same day. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this collection of internet mysteries, and if you did, please make sure to subscribe to Something Sinister. I really love talking about stuff like this, so if there's a mystery that we haven't covered yet on this channel, be sure to leave me some comments down in the comment section below about other, mysteries or subjects that you would like to see covered, or you can reach out to me directly through the Something Sinister Patreon. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video.